This is the first thing on the recording. This is actually the fourth Sunday of Pentecost, but we're not studying Pentecost. That's just the calendar. We're studying our favorite Bible stories, Old Testament Bible stories, notably. And we have been, I don't want to be too negative, but kind of stuck in Abraham for about a month. I'm going to honestly try to finish the Abraham story, which doesn't take us very far. It just takes us to Isaac, which is the next step in the family tree. But I would like to get there by the end of the class. We only have a half hour, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so today we're going to discuss Abraham, and as I said earlier, we're finally to the birth story of Isaac. So been a lot of promise. Today is Isaac's birthday, according to our. Okay. Yes, I hit the record already. Okay. Last week we had the Lot story. So Lot comes out of Sodom and Gomorrah, and now Abraham is moving on to the next phase. Lot and he are still in the land. Lot goes one direction. Abraham takes up, as you can see here, he moved on from there into the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur for a while. Now, watch this part of the story. This is very familiar to us. For a while, he stayed in Gerar, and there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Remember the story with him down in Egypt with the Pharaoh? He does exactly the same ruse that happened and Sarah participates in it. She's not innocent in this, but it's just weird. And if you think about it, we're talking about the father of the faith, the hero, the biblical hero Abraham is just, I don't know. This is low. He doesn't trust God enough, I guess, to protect him against, in this case, a king, Abimelech. Anyway, Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. So the ruse causes Sarah to be taken into the house of the king, presumably for sexual satisfaction of the king. But that's not where the story goes. Luckily, it goes in a different direction. And just like in the case of the king of Egypt, this king gets a visit from God. Abimelech has a dream one night, and God says, "You're as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman." God tells him the risk he's taken by bringing this woman into his house. Now, the good news is, as we see in verse 4, Abimelech hasn't touched her yet. I guess he's got a large enough harem that wasn't high on his priority list. He hadn't gotten around to it, luckily. Now, notice Abimelech is talking to God in verse 4. So Abimelech is a strange kind of Gentile, a strange kind of unbeliever. In fact, because he's talking to God, I would say that's the wrong title. You shouldn't call him an unbeliever. He may not be a Hebrew, but he is responding to God. "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say she's my sister?" And that's true. I mean, this is a good defense. Abraham set this problem up, and Abimelech just went along with it, I guess. Anyway, And notice she also participated. Didn't she also say, he is my brother? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands. That's a pretty challenging statement to make to God.
Yeah.
We Christians, we don't challenge God in those words.
No.
Because we've been taught we're supposed to say, I'm a sinner, right? But my role is a sinner. But honestly, I would suspect that there's an awful lot of Christians who would give this clean hands argument to God. I haven't sinned. I deserve your protection. That again, that's not a Christian stand, but I can understand, especially in this poor guy's case, he wasn't to blame. Anyway, God agrees with him. Okay. I know you did this with a clear conscience. Now, however, God takes the credit. It is true that Abimelech didn't call for Sarah from the harem. God takes credit for that. See, I have kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. Okay, that's a God takes credit for Abimelech's actions. Now return this man's wife, for he is a prophet. He will pray for you and you will live. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all yours will die. Give her back. Give her back. Abraham is going to pray for you. That's what you're going to get in this exchange. Okay. He's going to pray for blessing. But also it will prevent this big negative. All yours will die. And we learn a little bit later that the interpretation of that involves the women of Abimelech's household were struck sterile. You'll see it down below. They are healed in the process of this story playing out.
So Abimelech is now finding out what a complete disaster Abraham's lie has brought up.
It could be, that's right. If he doesn't respond as God has said, apparently all that are currently in his household are going to die. I'm not sure. It turns out that the women were sterile as a result of this also. So
you couldn't blame Abimelech if he said, "Get out of here."
Yeah. So you said, "Get out," and that's what happens next. The next paragraph. Early the next morning, Abimelech summons his court. And can you imagine? Now remember, these are not Hebrews. These are supposedly the unbelievers. And so Abimelech starts to tell this story. God came to me last night and told me what situation we were in, and I need to do a couple things. He called Abraham in. What have you done to us? Have I wronged you that you brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? Anyway, why did you do this to us? Abraham says he thought that there was no God in this place. In other words, that they weren't believers. And apparently Abimelech is enough of a believer to talk to God. They will kill me because of my wife. And then he really waffles. Remember, we talked about this. Sarah and Abraham really were half brother and sister. So that's what he says. Well, she really is my sister. But that really isn't the issue. Right. So anyway, Sarah, it just repeats the fact that Sarah participated. So Abimelech gives him sheep, cattle, male and female slaves, turns them over to Abraham, returns Sarah to him, and said, my land is before you, live wherever you like. In other words, get out of my castle.
Yeah,
but you can live anywhere you want.
and here's compensation.
Yeah, and here's compensation. Yeah. The king gives Sarah, the king tells Sarah that he's giving 1,000 shekels of silver. I don't know what value that is in terms of wealth, but I
A
suspect,
shekel is about a half an ounce.
well, I'm suspecting,
So,
so I'm suspecting that is a large monetary gift. 1,000 shekels is a lot. This is to cover the offense against you. Anyway. Now, this is the line where you get the idea that there was something else going on in the health of the women. Abraham did pray to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his slave girls so they could all have children again. For the Lord had closed up every womb in Abimelech's household because of Abraham and his wife Sarah.
Oh, boy.
So Abraham resolves the problem. The court is healed. And that's the end of the Abimelech story. It's very similar, though, to the Egyptian story. Twice now, Abraham has used this ruse, and he has been successful at it. Each time he multiplies his wealth. The Pharaoh gave him wealth, and Abimelech gave him wealth. So I would think, in terms of a teaching moment, God should have worked this another way. So, but the good news, there's not a third case. This is it. He's not going to misbehave again. Okay, finally, we're chapter 21. We finally get to the birth. Now, the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. Now, of course, we could have also say at Sarah's advanced age, because at this point she's 90 years old. Okay. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When the son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him. Circumcision was in last week's. The whole sign of the covenant of circumcision is recent in this story. It was just in the previous chapter that God introduced that as a sign of the covenant. So just to repeat, Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. Yeah. The connection to laughter, remember the story, Sarah laughs in the tent when she's told about the prophecy. And Abraham also laughs at the prophecy. Now they've got a young baby to deal with. I don't know if they're still laughing, but they, okay. Now we get into the natural part of the story. The son of the promise has been born. He is the heir. But remember, he's not the oldest son, not the firstborn son. So they're celebrating this new child, how wonderful it is to have this child. And here you have the story of Hagar the Egyptian, who has already given Abraham a son, Ishmael. The word here used is mocking. But Sarah saw that the son that Hagar had born was mocking. So in terms of age, I think Ishmael is about 12 years older than Isaac. So you've got a baby that's being celebrated, and here's a 12-year-old boy who is being pushed aside. And so his behavior is what you'd expect, actually, I think. Anyway, Abraham, sorry. Let me get the. Yes, I want to make sure I get the right woman. Yes, Sarah says to Abraham, we got to solve this problem. Get rid of that slave and her son. This is Sarah talking now.
Yeah, because she got jealous.
She got jealous about this slave woman. It doesn't
I
reflect
know that.
it doesn't reflect well on Sarah, but it also doesn't reflect well on Abraham. Abraham is distressed. He's got 2 wives, 2 sons, and he's distressed. Now,
Yeah, that is too much.
the advice from God here is hard to understand. Don't be distressed about the boy and your maidservant. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the maidservant into a nation also, because he is your offspring. God is telling him, you don't need to worry about the fact that one is greater than the other. They're both going to be great, but in a different way. The son of the promise is Isaac, but that doesn't mean God isn't going to bless Ishmael. And what that creates for us today, 3,000 years later, is the problem in the Middle East. We have a chosen people in the land, and we have the other people in the land. Now, I'm not saying that Ishmael is the only father of that, because there already were people living in Canaan already. But you've created this difference, chosen and the not chosen.
He is considered the father of the Arabic nation.
Well, but I'm just trying to, I'm stepping back one step from that, because, as I said, there are already people living in Canaan. When Abraham arrived, before this whole story with Ishmael, there were already people in the land. They are listed in one of the earlier chapters that we looked at. I can't remember them at the moment, but there are Canaanites living in the land. Now, who became, quote, Arabs? I'm not sure. Well, that's what he said, and I just don't know if it's that simple. I just don't know. She was an Egyptian woman, so he's known as the son of the Egyptian maidservant. But anyway, so Abraham kicks her out. Abraham provides her with some sustenance, and she's removed from the camp. And I've told you before, this is really a death sentence. This is nasty, really, especially a woman with a child. Now, he's a 12-year-old boy, so he's not an infant, but still, unprotected, living in the wilderness is terrible.
Yeah, in the desert.
Yeah, so this is bad. Now,
So this is Abraham's solution.
at that point, that's right.
We're not getting a real brilliant picture of Abraham.
So, and that's where I wanted.
His decisions are.
That's where I wanted to come out today. Well, then what do we see about Abraham?
Yeah.
I think I've convinced you that we don't see a lot of what we would normally think of as heroic virtues.
Right.
If you normally, our heroes have more virtue.
He's pretty self-centered, yeah.
Okay, so what do we see about Abraham that is notable? And that's it. That's all. Because there's nothing else there. I mean, if we look, we'll be disappointed. If we look for why did God choose Abraham? I'm going to recommend you don't go there, because you're going to be disappointed. There's nothing there. He is a man who twice has basically agreed to sell off his wife for his own protection. In this case, he's condemned a woman and a son to probable death in the desert. But what is important about him is God loved him.
And if you look at the total situation, he was chosen and he stayed chosen. He didn't own any property. I think the only property he owned was the cave where he was buried in. Bought.
Well, no, wait, I've made the point that he's made a lot of money. Are you saying at the time he died, he had no?
He's a nomadic.
Oh,
Yeah, he has to.
He doesn't settle down. In other words, he didn't go back to Mesopotamia.
no.
He didn't go back to the home, say, it's just not working out, I'm leaving. So he did have the faith to continue the journey.
There's two stories about faith that we normally point to. And the one is the one where he leaves his home in the Chaldean, is it Ur of the Chaldeans? Get up and go to the promised land. That's the one story. And the other story is the one we're going to have to rush if I'm going to get to it, but it's a very familiar one, the sacrifice of Isaac. That is a story that also is kind of hard to get your mind around, but it is.
That's the highlight of this whole.
I think so. So let me scroll. Got some more Abimelech stories, but here, okay, here it is.
Abimelech was a very generous guy.
Yes. Apparently a believer of a different type. But anyway, okay, here's chapter 22 begins with this strange story of the testing of Abraham. The word tested Abraham. Now you've gone through this whole problem of getting him chosen, of convincing him over a 25-year period that he's going to be the father of a great nation. He finally has the heir, and then God tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. And it's not hidden. He's up front about it.
And I know why he did it too.
Because he wanted to test his faith. No?
Yeah,
Okay.
but he also wanted him to see if he would actually do
Yeah, that's what I mean. The test.
it. Yeah,
But my point is, God is not pussyfooting around here. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, go to the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there as a burnt offering. So he didn't pull any punches. You're going to take your son, you're going to kill him, and you're going to put him on a burnt offering fire.
yeah, and then.
And he
what
does.
happened after that.
Well, hold on a second. We got to get there.
Okay.
Abraham takes Isaac and I'm looking for the words. Yeah. Poor Isaac doesn't know it yet. Here's the interchange with Isaac. So they get up to the mountain. Isaac looks around. He must have participated in worship with his father before. And normally there are the materials for the fire, and there is a lamb or a goat or something.
Mhm.
This time there's no lamb. That's what Isaac is saying. Father, yes, my son. Fire and the wood are here, but where's the lamb? Where's the lamb?
Where's the lamb?
And here Abraham says something that is very profound. This you could say is a faith statement. Now, Abraham knows that the intention is that Isaac is going to be the sacrifice. At this point, that's what he thinks is going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's not what he says. He says God will provide the sacrifice. Now, you could say that he was talking about Isaac. because Isaac was given to them in their old age. So you could say Isaac qualifies. He would be a sacrifice that had been given to them by God. But of course, we know that that's not the story,
No,
because
stopped
the angel stops him. Don't harm don't harm your son. They
Yeah.
look around, and now in the thicket, they see a ram. So it does turn out that God does provide a different sacrifice than Isaac.
him. Yeah.
But this line, God provides the sacrifice. We're
I know, because I want to move.
now I can't. Oh, here it is. Here's the line.
Yeah.
God himself
What happened.
will provide the sacrifice is a line that points me to our Christian faith, because we are like Isaac, and we're looking around and saying, what do I have to sacrifice? What do I have to do to bring about reconciliation? And as the pastor said this morning, it's not how it works. God makes the sacrifice. God makes it happen.
Mhm.
So it is true, God himself will provide the lamb. In our faith, we're talking about Jesus on the cross. In the story of Abraham, it was a ram in a bush, but that's a picture of what ultimately happens. We deserve to be sacrificed on the altar. Jesus is sacrificed instead. And that's how I'm going to bring an end to the Abraham story. There is a little bit more. If you're interested, read on a little bit more. Sarah dies at the end of the story, and Abraham insists on owning the land to bury Sarah. So that's another piece of property he ends up owning. And the king says, I'll give it to you. I'll give you the land. No, I want to buy it so that there's no question. So anyway, what were we going to say, Tim?
A couple of points about the sacrifice. That is the first substitutionary sacrifice. Isaac was going to die. Substitute there. In previous sacrifices, he wasn't going to die. The animal simply died to cover the sins.
Yeah, before Moses establishes Mosaic law, there apparently isn't any substitutionary sacrifice. The lamb is not taking your place on the altar.
And it happens to be a lamb of God. Behold, there is the Lamb of God.
Right. Right.
The other part was, it's believed that that mountain that he trekked 3 days to go to was Moriah, the same place that Solomon's temple and the future temple.
Yeah, it's understood by both Muslim and Christian and Jews that where the Temple Rock is right now, there's a mosque there. It's called the Dome of the Rock.
So that's the place where for thousands of years sacrifices were made of animals.
Yes.
And that started with the first sacrifice of
Yes.
that lamb.
Yes.
The symbolism is heavy.
Yes. Yeah, there's no, it doesn't mention the word Jerusalem because this is long before Jerusalem existed as a city, but it ended up being the city of Jerusalem surrounds this mountain. Yeah. Anything else?
That rock is in Jerusalem.
The dome, it's called the Dome of the Rock because of this rock that was the altar on which, now they say, the Muslims say, that it was Ishmael on the rock. Abraham was going to sacrifice Ishmael. And of course, we're reading Hebrew scriptures, so we see Isaac on the rock. Yeah. So, but we both, I mean, they both faiths think of Abraham as the father. They just differ on which branch is the chosen branch, I guess. Okay, I'm going to change the share again because I like to close with the Lord's Prayer. Let's see if this will work. No, it didn't. I have to do it one more time. Here's the Lord's Prayer. Let's close with prayer. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now, since there's nobody calling in from outside, I'm just going to end this meeting so the recording can begin.